All right, let's just dive right into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're tackling two of the absolutely most critical survival skills you could possibly have for the 21st century: adaptability and resilience. Look, let's be completely honest with each other for a second. The modern world we're living in, it is relentlessly stressful. It's fast-paced, entirely unpredictable, and it's constantly demanding that we just shift gears without a moment's notice. You're dealing with rapidly changing technologies, shifting workplace dynamics, and this unending, massive stream of information coming at you 24/7. Sometimes it can literally feel like trying to figure out a completely new software update while simultaneously presenting on a high-stakes Zoom call where your dog just won't stop barking in the background, right? It's a lot. But what if I told you that there is an ultimate, foundational solution to navigating all this modern chaos? That solution is mastering adaptability and resilience. By the end of this explainer, you're going to see exactly how you can transform what might initially seem like overwhelming obstacles into incredible, highly valuable opportunities for your own personal and professional development. So, let's get started.
You know, when you stand at the edge of this massive, complex landscape of uncertainty, it can be entirely paralyzing. The unknown is inherently scary for the human brain. We're just wired that way. But navigating that unknown with confidence and purpose is exactly what separates the people who truly thrive from those who are simply just surviving. I want to speak directly to you for a second. You might look at highly adaptable leaders or successful innovators, or maybe even just that one effortlessly calm friend of yours, and mistakenly think, oh, they were just born with some special resilience gene for handling stress. We tend to mythologize resilience, right? Like it's a biological lottery ticket. But the truth is, and this is so important, transforming obstacles into opportunities is a learnable, structured skill. It is absolutely not an innate magical trait. It's a highly practical approach to how you process the world. It's really like a muscle you can train, and it's something you can start developing today.
Okay, I really want you to consider this staggering number, 85%. Just let that sink in for a moment. In our modern education systems, in our corporate training programs, we spend an enormous amount of time stressing over technical qualifications, degrees, and hard skills. We obsess over them. But exhaustive research shows that a massive 85% of your long-term job success actually relies on well-developed soft skills. And guess what? Adaptability ranks right at the very top of that list. You can be the absolute most brilliant coder, the most insightful strategist, or the most talented designer in the entire room, but if you freeze up when the project scope abruptly changes or when a client completely shifts their demands at the last minute, all that technical brilliance simply gets lost in the noise. If you cannot adapt to new conditions, environments, or situations, your hard skills just won't have the reliable platform they need to shine. So this isn't just some nice-to-have personality quirk, this is an urgent career-defining metric.
So here is our roadmap for today's explainer. We're going to cover 1. The foundation of adaptability. 2. The psychology of resilience. 3. Developing a growth mindset. 4. Emotional intelligence and stress. 5. Practical coping strategies. And finally, number 6, your personal resilience journey.
All right, let's jump into section 1, the foundation of adaptability, building your base.
So, what exactly are we talking about when we use the word adaptability? Formally, it's defined as the ability to adjust effectively to new conditions, environments, or situations. But let's actually break down what that looks like in everyday practice, because it's so much more than just vaguely going with the flow. The source material highlights 3 distinct components that make up true adaptability. First off, there's flexibility in your thinking and behavior. This means you absolutely refuse to get stuck in that dangerous, well, this is how we've always done it trap. In real life, it looks like being willing to completely abandon a strategy you spent 3 whole weeks building the very moment new, contradictory market data comes in. Second, there's learning agility. This is your ability to acquire new skills really quickly when the environment demands it. Think of it like forcing yourself to understand a brand new artificial intelligence tool over the weekend, simply because the industry standard just shifted. And third, emotional intelligence, which is the absolutely crucial element needed to read the room and navigate the messy, shifting social dynamics that inevitably accompany any major change. You really need all 3 of these functioning together to be truly adaptable.
Moving right along to section 2, the psychology of resilience, the science of bouncing back. Now we're shifting our focus from how we adapt to changing situations to how we actually recover from the painful ones. Resilience is the ability to bounce back from adversity and adapt well in the face of trauma, tragedy, or significant sources of stress. If we want to use a really helpful analogy here, think of adaptability as your car's steering wheel. It guides you through the sharp, unexpected turns on the road. Resilience, on the other hand, acts as your shock absorbers. Having good shock absorbers doesn't mean you won't feel the bumps, the potholes, or the jarring hits along the way, but it ensures that the engine keeps running and the car doesn't completely break down when you do hit them. Developing this resilience builds profound psychological flexibility. It completely equips you to withstand life's heaviest challenges. And honestly, the truly incredible thing is, clinical research proves you can build this psychological flexibility at any point in your life. Regardless of your age or your past traumatic experiences, you are never, ever permanently stuck. Building resilience is kind of like constructing a sturdy, weatherproof pyramid. Methodically walking up this structure shows us exactly how to fortify our minds against stress. Down at the absolute foundational bedrock, we have neuroplasticity. Now, this isn't just some corporate buzzword, it is hard factual science that proves our brains can literally rewire themselves. We can form entirely new neural pathways based on new experiences and intentional habits throughout our entire lives. Your brain is structurally malleable. Moving up the pyramid, we find emotional regulation. This is the ability to experience really intense feelings, like anger or panic, without letting them immediately hijack your actions and your decision-making. Then comes positive reframing, which is the active cognitive skill of finding the hidden lesson or opportunity buried deep inside adversity. And finally, right at the peak, we have social support. This is all about leaning on human connection, which biology actually shows acts as a physical buffer against cortisol and stress. These 4 steps work sequentially to create an unshakable psychological flexibility. Let's head into Section 3, Developing a Growth Mindset, the Power of Perspective. Consider the massive psychological difference between 2 incredibly simple statements. In a fixed mindset, you encounter a really difficult wall and you declare, "I can't do this." It's a definitive, limiting declaration. And when you say that, you effectively shut down your brain's problem-solving centers. You literally signal to your nervous system that the threat is insurmountable and the effort should just stop. But let's lean heavily into what psychologists call the power of yet. By simply adding that tiny 3-letter word to the end of the sentence, making it, "I can't do this yet," you execute this microscopic semantic shift that completely transforms a limiting belief into an inspiring work in progress. It acknowledges the very real, current difficulty you're facing, but crucially, it leaves the door wide open. It turns a dead end into a puzzle to be solved, actively maintaining your motivation to keep pushing through the steep learning curve. This specific growth mindset manifests in some highly observable behaviors. People who have truly mastered adaptability consistently view challenges as direct, exciting opportunities to grow and develop new capabilities, rather than terrifying threats they need to avoid at all costs. They purposefully change their language, exactly like we just discussed with the power of yet, and importantly, they fundamentally reframe failure. They don't see a devastating setback as a reflection of their personal worth or their intelligence. Instead, they view it purely as highly valuable data. Think of it like the scientific method, right? If an experiment fails, a scientist doesn't cry and give up. The failure just tells them which specific variable they need to tweak for the very next attempt. This entire framework fuels a lifelong commitment to continuous learning, cultivating a natural, insatiable curiosity about the world rather than a paralyzing fear of the unknown. Now for Section 4, Emotional Intelligence and Stress, Navigating Complexity. So, emotional intelligence builds through a very specific cyclical process, and it all starts at Step 1, self-awareness. This is the baseline ability to recognize your own emotions in real time and actually understand their immediate impact on your body and on the room you're standing in. That directly leads to Step 2, self-regulation, where you manage those emotional responses appropriately instead of just lashing out impulsively when you feel threatened or overwhelmed. This internal control creates the necessary mental space for Step 3, empathy. That's the capacity to truly understand others' perspectives and emotional states. And finally, that deep empathy heavily informs Step 4, highly effective, nuanced social skills. Now, what's really fascinating from the source material is identifying the single most effective way to boost this entire cycle. The research points out that the regular daily practice of active listening, which means focusing completely on the speaker to understand their actual intent rather than just waiting impatiently for your turn to speak and mentally preparing your rebuttal, massively improves empathy and interpersonal connections. It's an absolute game changer. Of course, emotional intelligence gets severely tested and often completely derailed by acute stress. So, how do we actually manage it in the heat of the moment? First, you have to proactively identify your personal triggers so you aren't constantly getting caught off guard. Next, integrate a daily mindfulness practice. The clinical data shows that just 5 to 10 minutes of daily mindfulness meditation dramatically improves your cognitive focus and physically lowers resting anxiety levels. Never forget physical wellness either. Adequate sleep, proper nutrition, and exercise are the literal biological bedrock of stress resilience. Finally, when you are right in the thick of a stressful moment, utilize breathing techniques. The 4-7-8 breathing method, which involves inhaling deeply for 4 seconds, holding that breath for 7 seconds, and exhaling slowly for 8 seconds, is incredibly powerful. And it isn't just some mental placebo. That specific rhythm physically stimulates your vagus nerve and activates your parasympathetic nervous system, chemically forcing your heart rate to slow down and restoring your rational clarity.
Section 5. Practical coping strategies. Building your toolkit.
Okay, so we've covered the underlying science and the essential mindset shifts, right? But now it's time to actively construct your personalized resilience toolkit. And you need to do this before you actually need it in a crisis. What activities genuinely restore your energy? Seriously, write them down and keep that list highly accessible. Cultivate support networks filled with positive, rational people who share your challenges and can offer grounded, realistic advice. And absolutely crucially, you must ruthlessly protect your work-life balance. That means actually closing your laptop at 6 p.m., turning off the relentless email notifications on your phone, and setting unapologetic boundaries. You have to actively schedule regular breaks and prioritize activities that bring you genuine joy totally outside of your professional identity. Furthermore, the source material heavily emphasizes the practice of self-compassion. This means treating yourself with the exact same level of kindness, patience, and understanding you would immediately offer a really good friend who is struggling. We are so often our own harshest, most unforgiving critics, and that internal toxicity absolutely destroys our resilience over time.
When we are confronting failure, our internal narrative is absolutely everything. This is a crucial research finding regarding exactly how quickly we can overcome severe setbacks. People with an unhelpful view tend to see failure as permanent, meaning their brain tells them, it will always be this difficult, I am never going to get better, and pervasive, meaning, because I failed at this one single presentation, I am a terrible employee and a total failure at everything in my life. That psychological trap essentially guarantees you will stay down. The resilient view, however, categorizes failure entirely differently. It sees failure as temporary. Okay, this is just a frustrating setback for today, tomorrow is a totally new opportunity, and highly specific. I didn't prepare enough for that particular slide deck, but it definitely doesn't define my entire professional worth. The research is super clear here. People who view failures as temporary and specific recover much quicker, they retain their confidence, and they learn far more effectively from their mistakes.
And finally, Section 6, your personal resilience journey, moving forward. We've covered a vast amount of ground today, and now it's time to translate all this fascinating theory into concrete action. But please remember this warning. If you try to implement every single strategy we've discussed all at once starting tomorrow morning, you will inevitably burn out and just revert to your old habits. So begin with very small steps. I strongly encourage you to start by implementing just one new resilience practice in your daily routine. Maybe it's just doing that 5 minutes of mindfulness with your morning coffee, or trying the 4-7-8 breathing method right before a stressful meeting, or simply forcing yourself to add the word yet to a negative thought. This micro-habit approach builds sustainable momentum without all the overwhelm. Maintain consistent practice, measure your progress backward by reflecting on how much better you handle stress today than you did maybe 6 months ago. Systematically break down massive, intimidating challenges into highly manageable, bite-sized steps. And above all, do not forget to genuinely celebrate your growth along the way. Acknowledge the hard work you're putting into developing these absolutely essential life skills. And that brings us to the end of our explainer. After everything we've unpacked today regarding the science of adaptability, the psychology of bouncing back, and the practical tools for managing an increasingly complex reality, I want to leave you with one profoundly empowering question to reflect on. What is the first small step you will implement today to build your resilience? Think about it. You are now fully equipped with the neurobiology, the mindset shifts, and the practical daily tools needed to navigate an unpredictable world. The capacity to bounce back stronger is already hardwired inside you. It really just takes a little bit of intentional daily practice to unlock it. So, pick just one tool from the kit we built today, start using it, and just watch how it transforms your response to the world. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time.